Welcome back to the second half of our Northern Vancouver Island adventure. In the last video, we camped in Seward and Alder Bay, visiting towns and a little history along the way. Come with us to Port McNeill, Port Alice, Port Hardy, and Fort Rupert, which in itself has a very unique story with First Nations, Scottish settlers, forts and coal mining, and so much more to discover. Welcome to Port McNeill. I'm going to take a couple shots, take a look at a few things, and
yeah, there is.
Take a little walk.
We're going up there next.
Port McNeill, named after the captain of the Hudson Bay steamship the SS Beaver, being the first steamship on the Pacific Northwest coast. In the late 1830s, this was an important strategic trading place between the Hudson Bay Company and First Nations. Loggers were working in the area in 1920, and by 1937, Pioneer Timber Company established a logging camp. Coal was discovered in the area in 1835, and Hudson Bay Company brought miners from England to mine the coal. Port McNeill and its surrounding areas date back 9,000 years with First Nations. Port McNeill is now the reforestation capital of Northern Vancouver Island. This is Port Alice, beautiful and absolutely scenic. Port Alice sits on the banks of the Narotsis Inlet in Quatsino Sound. The Olas called this area home pre-1750, and in the late 1800s, the Koskimo lived in this area, within the traditional territory of the Quatsino First Nation. The original town site was struck by slides in 1927 and in 1935, and the town was relocated further away from the mill in 1965. Construction began on the mill in 1917, and it was closed 97 years later in 2015. After 104 years, the pulp mill was demolished. An archaeological dig at Bear Cove uncovered evidence of human habitation dating back to 5850 BC. The 400 artifacts span 3 separate cultural periods, making Port Hardy the oldest known site of human habitation on Vancouver Island. We camped at Port Hardy RV Resort, tucked between the Quatsi River and a 138-acre estuary wildlife sanctuary. It was truly blissful, and very near our next stop, Fort Rupert. Welcome to Port Hardy, and we have a friend. He's decided that
hanging out's cool.
Yeah,
he wants food.
He's very cute. Hello, little man. I know you're very cute. You see it's slippery up there too.
Yes, it is.
Jonathan's got his bag stored underneath, and his boots and his socks airing out. Probably a good thing. And he's got things stored here in his gear hammock. I've got my top porch just a little bit. It was really nice actually this morning looking out over the ocean where we were camped last night. And laundry's hanging up, same thing. I've got my bike gear in the gear hammock. I tend to just throw my shoes into this little bag at night, then they don't get any bugs on them, and I'm really quite happy about that. And I hang my boots up right here on the line, and should be a nice restful evening. What a great ride up island today. These bikes have been utterly fantastic. We have everything hung up, our laundry's done, and should be a nice, fabulous evening. So this is the estuary right beside the campground. Pretty darn beautiful. Love the lichens. Hello, little man. I think we have a little friend. Hi, beautiful.
Don't feed the wildlife. Come on, buddy, got some food for you.
Just looking out in the bay at Fort Rupert. This totem pole was carved by the descendants of Robert Hunt, and this is for Mary Ebbets from 1823 to 1919. Looking back at the totem pole. This is one of the cannons from the original fort. Fort Rupert is the site of a former Hudson Bay Company fort on Beaver Harbour. The strong fortifications of 1849 were to provide protection from the fierce warriors in the area. A dozen Europeans manned the fort with outside contact only twice yearly from HBC steamboat. By 1851, Scottish coal miners refusing work and unhappy about the armed attacks were put in irons and placed on rations. Mining ceased in 1852. The fort continued as a trading post and was abandoned in 1882. Robert Hunt purchased this site in 1885. The Hunt family ran a general store, and you will find a totem pole carved by his descendants in town today. Petroglyphs and trading beads can still be seen when the tide is out on the sandstone formations below the former fort site. All that remains today are the footings, drains, and the huge stone chimney built with the Scottish craftsmanship at the factor's residence. The northern Vancouver Island has many old mines, and the oldest is the Suquash mine between Fort Rupert and Port McNeill. Suquash means the place where seal meat is cut into strips, where seals were hunted and coal existed. In 1914, the mine shaft filled with water and mining operations were shut down. In 1920, they drained the shafts and resumed mining until the water again filled the mine in 1922. A little Vancouver Island forest action. Little trail through the woods to a creek. As we board BC ferries and head for home, it's perfect timing with a storm approaching, and we may be adding rain gear by the time we get to Horseshoe Bay, or at the very least, a warmer layer. It was a great ride with only about 2 kilometers of the North Island Highway diverted to a logging road. Otherwise, the highway was in excellent shape. Thank you for coming along with us, and we hope you join our next adventure. Meanwhile, safe travels to all, and most importantly, don't forget to just get out and ride.